One of the problems with this selective breeding is a thing called popular sire syndrome. So they'll take one dad, and he's very popular, he's a show dog, and he might have had a litter that had some other show dogs. Now they think, that's show breed quality, I have to do this for every single type of this breed. So they take one dad, and they spread him across all sorts of litters. And so something that might not have been a big problem, like breathing problems, starts to become a bigger and bigger problem as he starts to spread his genes too thinly. And a lot of times, most people tend to actually breed the father with something that might be accidentally his daughter or granddaughter, something a little more closely related than third cousin twice removed. Now we have a pretty big problem in this country with assuming certain types of dogs will behave a certain way. Like the Pomeranian's a good lap dog, or Golden Retrievers are great family pets, they love everybody. Well, we also have a negative bias against certain animals called pit bulls. Now the pit bull is kind of a catch-all. Every decade we have a different kind of catch-all predator. In the 70s it was the Dobermans, in the 80s it was the German Shepherds, 90s was the Rottweilers, and today we have pit bulls. We link certain types of behaviors and we link dog biting, these types of breeds, even though evidence doesn't show that they actually bite more than other animals do. Most of these dogs, unfortunately, were socialized and brought up in households, lower income areas, so they don't really know how to handle a dog correctly, or they won't get them spayed or neutered, so some negative traits will come through just through incessant breeding. Sometimes they also tend to be kingpins, drug lords, slum lords, those kinds of people's enforcers to keep people off their property and to keep them away from their illegal activities. So negative behaviors were encouraged in these animals, and instead of spaying or neutering them, once they got them out of that kind of environment, they bred them with other animals, and so the negative and bad behaviors that were already enforced in these animals gets passed on to another gene pool. Most of the time, it's not even the dog's fault when they bite. When you hear about fatal dog bites, are they ever somebody in their 20s, in their 30s? No, it tends to be children. And that's scary to think about because you really don't want your baby to get bit. But what do children do? They have to grab, they have to poke, and they have to prod, and they have to annoy animals. Some animals can take it, like Fizzgig. But some animals just have a lower tolerance for that. Through no fault of the animal's fault, through no fault of their own, the animal will act out. It wants you to stop doing a thing, so it's going to bite. A pit bull's pretty big, and its jaws are pretty big. You're more likely to get bit by a Chihuahua than a pit bull, but if a pit bull bites you, it's definitely going to do more damage. It's a sad fact to think, but most pit bulls do cause a lot of damage. Well, Pomeranians don't really have that much bite behind their bark. They can bite for a number of reasons, even behind children annoying them. They could be scared, they could be stressed out, there's too many people. Sometimes it's a reaction to being sick. Sometimes it's just a reaction, they want to play. So they don't know what they're doing and they grab you. They only have one thing to grab with though, and that happens to be their mouth. I think it would occur less if we make sure that children know the proper way to handle animals and don't approach strangers' dogs. Always ask before petting, that's a general rule of thumb, and I think the word's been getting out because annually we've been getting less and less dog bites, even though certain news sources will tell you otherwise. Now, another fun fact about pit bulls, there is no such thing as a pit bull. It's a coverall term for the American Pit Bull Terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier, American Bully Breed, Staffordshire Bull Terrier. They have a history of being bait dogs, but since that's illegal, now they just kind of have a stocky build and tend to be used for dog fights, which breeds aggression and then once again brings us back to that original discussion of how they got to be the way they are. Now, it sucks, but the best way to help an animal out if you have a problem with aggression, is to actually fix them, spay and neuter them, because that tends to take some of the extra estrogen or testosterone that kind of makes them a little more wild, a little more rampant, and they tend to mellow out after they get spayed or neutered, even if it's later in life. And then you're also preventing them from breeding, which can make the gene pool full of more aggressive genes, full of more unwanted genes. It just kind of helps everybody out if you spay and neuter your pets. And I think people should really just focus on what they want for their family. If you're a runner, you should get a high energy dog. If you have small kids, you get something that has no history of aggression, maybe a puppy, so you can work with it and help it learn that children are safe and they're not going to hurt you much. It really depends on the environment, and unfortunately most people choose animals based on how they look and not by their actions. And because they do that, negative things are going to happen, like the pit bulls biting children, or our little inbreeding because we really want just 50 Pomeranians stat. It would help out the entire country if we would just take more consideration into how we treat dogs. Thank you.